So, DIY marketing, how to save money and when to use a professional to help you. There are definitely situations where it's a good idea to have some professional help and will actually save you money in the long run, but there are other situations where you can just go for it yourself. So what's marketing? I'm going to share with you the 4 basic elements of marketing. There's 1,001 different definitions of marketing out there, and some of them are very complex and incredibly long-winded, and nobody understands them. So I'm going to try and keep it nice and simple. First of all, understand what your customer actually needs. That's got to be really important. Very often I have people come into the British Library to see me and they've got an absolutely wonderful idea which nobody will want to buy. So it is very important to understand that there's a market out there for you in the first instance. Next, make sure you make the products which your clients are going to want and it will satisfy their needs. Now the next point is in fact what most people understand marketing to be. If you actually stop a man in the street, this is what they are likely to tell you. You need to communicate that you have the solution to everybody's requirements. Really important. So it's all about communication. Most people see communication as being the most important element of marketing. But I add one extra to that, which a lot of people don't think of. Good service is marketing in its own right, from beginning to end of the customer journey. So from the very first moment somebody puts their hand up and says, "Hi, I'm here and I'm interested in buying your products," marketing starts. And it does not finish until you've collected the debt in a professional manner. So every touch point is marketing, whether you like to call it customer service or sales. So from website, which may be the first point of contact, right the way through to invoicing, you need to make a good impression every time. And that is not expensive to do. It's process well controlled and training well implemented. My next question to you, well, what's a customer? We're wanting to speak to our customers, we want to communicate with our customers, but the first thing we need to know is actually who they are. Now I'm going to state the obvious to start with, which is your existing, your previous and your prospective buyers. That's obviously going to be the case. But who else should your marketing be aimed at? Is there anybody else you should be talking to? Well, in my view, I think there's very important groups of people, and it will depend on the business or the organisation as to who these groups of people might be. Referrers and influencers. If you're an accountant, it's very important you work closely with solicitors because they're going to give you leads. So it's not just about talking to the end customer, but it's also talking to the people who might refer business to you. And influence is also very important. Anyone who's tried to sell into a hospital will know that although there might ultimately be only 1 or 2 people who make that decision, they will be influenced by an awful lot of other people. So it's very important that you're engaging with the whole gambit, not just 1 or 2 of these individuals. Next, your partners and your suppliers can be real advocates and promote your business for you with very little effort. So marketing to them and getting a very good relationship with them is incredibly helpful. The media. Lots of people don't think of these people. Now, sometimes your business is not appropriate for the press, but if a journalist is trying to find out some information, comes across your website, will they get what they need? Now, I'm going to go on to 3 sets of organisations which are separate from businesses and just touch on a slightly wider way of viewing things. For charities, it's not only the person who's going to do some donation or sponsors, but they're also set up for recipients of the money and also for their volunteers themselves to make them feel good about giving up their time. For public sector, at a school you've got the pupil or student cohort, you've got the parent cohort, you've got the teachers and all the support staff. At the hospitals, similarly, you've got doctors, nurses, administrators, as well as the patients and the doctors and GPs who are sending people through. And finally, if you're a council, you've got your ratepayers, you've got your tenants, but you've also got your workforce. Moving on to the strategy. What's the strategy? Well, the most important strategy is to try and grow your customer base. And one of the easiest ways of starting is to make sure you don't actually lose any. So retaining what you've got already is a very good place to start. And to develop those so they spend a bit more and the margin goes up. Secondly, keeping in touch with your former customers who might have bought from you once or twice in the past and they don't have need now. But if you keep in touch with them, you never know. They might buy again or bigger next time. And finally, obviously, is to develop new customers. Prospecting. Now, for a lot of people, think that marketing is just that last one. To my mind, it's all three of those, and they're all equally important. It's no good going and getting lots of new customers through the front door if you're hemorrhaging your existing customers through the back door. So you need to make sure that you stop that from happening. So how are you going to do this? Ask your customers what they want, how they think, and how they feel about your products. And don't be scared to do so. Lots of people are very nervous when I suggest, let's do a customer survey, because they say, well, somebody might say something bad, and that will be terrible. No, it won't. It's a great opportunity to turn that one client round, but also if one person's got that problem, others may do, and it allows you to put things right. Now, very occasionally, we've all lost a customer. It does happen to the best of us. When they leave, find out why they wanted to leave and then put a stop to that problem. If Basil Fawlty had taken a little bit of advice from his very disgruntled residents, he might have discovered that shouting at them all of the time and giving them terribly bad service wasn't doing him, his bottom line, any favours. Or, in the words of the great Bill Gates, use the knowledge of unhappy clients to improve what you're doing. Now, the great news is the next piece of marketing is always free and ever so easy and doesn't require a great deal of training to get right. So, what is it, this free and wonderful thing? It's called good manners. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to say thank you. How many people remember to say thank you for your business and can I have some more, please? It's not difficult, but actually, the number of salesmen who remember to do that is very small. So making sure that it's trained into all of your team to do so on a regular basis is critical. It will really help produce a warm, nice, fuzzy feeling between you and your customer. They will leave happy and they hopefully will come back. And what's more important, they might tell their friends, which we always like. We always like friends to refer more business. So that's retaining customers. My third point was going out and getting new ones. There's two ways of getting new ones. One is to let them to come to you. And that's what I want to talk about next. It's not actually going out and doing the hard stuff like networking, which is what we're all trying to do this evening, but actually encouraging them to engage with you. The most important part of most businesses' armoury in this area has got to be your website. Now, have a quick think and decide how often you do that with your website if you've got one. Often when I say that to clients, they feel a little bit uncomfortable because they haven't actually looked at it for not only days, weeks, but sometimes months. And actually there's some interesting little surprises on their website which I don't even know about, and it's a bit of a disaster. Now, everybody talks about a website as being the shop window. It's your shop window. Great. Well, if you walk down Harrow High Street and walk past some shop windows, how many of them were different from the last time you walked down your shop down the high street a month ago or 2 months ago? Yeah. Wouldn't it be terrible if every shop window looked the same for 3 years on the trot? That's what we do with our websites. Almost everybody does it. If you don't give it some tender loving care, it's boring. Even if people come back and revisit your website, about 25% to 45% on an average website are people who are returning to your site. Give them something a little bit more interesting to look at. So, lots of people say to me, yeah, it's a website, but most people don't look at my website. It's just old hat. Now, what you mean is you don't look at your website. Actually, your potential clients do. Will it surprise you that the consumers, ordinary everyday consumers, before they go out and buy that toaster, go and buy a new shirt, perhaps buy a car, 80% of them will do their research online before they go to a shop. Over 80%, in fact. Even more dramatic is business to business customers. That's 95%. So if your website is looking a bit tired, that's what they're seeing of you. It's your opportunity. You can either take it or leave it. Make sure every page is benefit-led. Now, for those who don't understand what I mean by benefit-led, don't tell them, I'm amazing, we do this. We give fantastic customer service. So does absolutely every other company in the country. We've been trading for 30 years, so we must be good. No, that doesn't make you good. It might make you very old-fashioned, actually, so that's not going to give you any benefit at all. However, if you say, use my services and you will be richer, oh, now that's getting a little bit more interesting. If you sell CCTV cameras, you say, use my CCTV cameras, I guarantee your safety. I guarantee your children's safety. And what's more, if the worst ever happened and somebody broke in, the quality of my video will be so good you can use it in court and you'll nail that burglar. That's much more powerful than saying, my CCTV camera gives HD resolution and it does this many frames per second, and no, we're not interested in that. What we're looking for is the benefit. So use lots of your content and make sure it's customer-centric. Another thing, which is a little bugbear of mine, websites. When I've spoken to clients, when I'm designing a website for them, they want to put every single service and every single type of client they've ever had on the home page. The net result is a mess, which is cluttered and difficult and very hard to find your way around. So keep it simple and go for the jugular. Go for your key service, the thing which you think will attract your customers in. Then lead them through the website so they can discover the other things that you do. Keep it simple and make it accessible. Make it interactive. Make it useful to people. Give them a reason for sticking around. Make it dynamic. And finally, my final point, and this is important for doing things on a shoestring. There's free software out there which most people can manage to do themselves. Use a free, what we call a CMS, which is a content management system. I would strongly recommend WordPress. Over 50% of all websites in the world now are built on WordPress. Now, the tremendous advantage of this is if you get in a bit of hot water, there's over 500,000 programmers out there who can help you out of it, which is always useful. And Google's a wonderful thing. I wish I could do X, Google X, and up it pops and it says, here's the solution. Just pop it in this section of your WordPress site and hey presto, it will work. Well, why not do that? So definitely go for a WordPress or similar site. WordPress is probably the easiest. So you've got your website. You need to know whether it's working properly. And you want to know if you can make some changes which will give you an improvement and an uplift in its effectiveness quickly and easily. And what I'm going to do, I've got just a few little examples of things which people often make mistakes with and how to put them right. Whiteout text is really difficult to read. Red text is even worse. Even on a white background, red text is an absolute no-no. And for some people with certain forms of dyslexia, all of those letters are now jumbling around and moving. Block capitals and underlines make it hard to read. So although I've got this as a better format and we've got a dark font on a lighter background, which is definitely easier to read, it's still not the easiest way of writing. That is definitely the easiest for everybody to read. Now, given that you've got 8 seconds to impress people, maximum, some people are now saying 3, okay, and let's be generous, a good proportion of the population, particularly of my wrinkles and generation, will have to grab for their glasses if you make the font too small. Then we've got dyslexics, and then we've got a large number of people who don't have English as a foreign language, especially if you're exporting. So you need to use simple English, well laid out, nice clear font, very straightforward. Photos. Now, for those who can't see, this is a picture which was taken in one of my clients' factories. He has a fantastic job. He makes parts out of titanium for Formula One cars. So Ferrari are a client, for example. And this piece of kit is worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it's very impressive. The only thing is that all his competitors have got machines which are quite similar. And that isn't a very warm photo. Now, I couldn't find a brilliant example, but I'm just going to give you an example. If you add a person into that, a member of his staff, it immediately makes it more engaging. It immediately creates a sense that there's somebody there in the factory who's going to do a caring job and deliver exactly what the client wants. So including people in your photography really lifts every product. The next thing, which occasionally people are a bit wary about doing, is the team page. In many websites, the team page is the most important page after the home page and the contact us page, because people want to go there to see if you're trustworthy, honest, reliable, and they want to look at you whites of the eyes. So at a networking event, you can see me and you know whether or not you're going to trust me or not. Website, you haven't got that trust yet, so you need to build it up. So having some photography there is great. Having smiley photography is even better. Now, if you've got a trendy website, they might be saying, well, let's do something really sophisticated. Let's use black and white photography, because that would look really cool, wouldn't it? This chap, to my mind, doesn't look like a professional. He looks like somebody who would like to be an actor. Mm-hmm. And we can't really see him very well. It all washes out, and I'm not terribly impressed. So I don't recommend black and white. Let's go up even more trendy. Let's think about a design company. And how many design companies do we know who like to use caricatures? You trust this gentleman? Very hip and trendy, but you know, I'm just thinking, no, don't bother. Right, I am going to put my photo where my mouth is right now. A bit scary. This is my portrait that I use. When you are smiling, when you are easy to see, when you appear to be more approachable, people warm to that. And there is something else which I want to mention, is that when you look at somebody, when somebody smiles at you, I'm going to smile at you all. Lots of you have smiled back, because it's an automatic reflex everybody does. And what's interesting about that is it produces endorphins, which make you feel good. So you're now feeling good. What's really interesting is that you do it with pictures and video. Isn't that fascinating? So what happens is you see a picture of a nice smiley person, I'm hoping me here today, on the website, and you at least inwardly, if not really, smile. This produces endorphins in your system, and it makes you think, this website's lovely. I'm happy I'm here. Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win situation. It's giving a very positive bit of feedback. My last little tip for this evening on websites is lots of people on websites forget to tell their visitor what to do next to move you on to the next stage of the customer journey. So don't be frightened to ask for somebody to do something like pick up the phone. Lots of them don't have anything at all, or they might have a line in the text. This is an example, a real life example, of what we call a call to action on a website. It's a button and it does the job. It's not very good for a number of different reasons. There's too many words. We've got white-out text on a red background. I've already told you red doesn't really work very well. And interestingly, red is the colour of danger. So having just talked about endorphins being positive, okay, scaring them is really not a cool idea. interestingly, the same effect. If I've got any accountants in the room, if you put a spreadsheet and a calculator on your homepage, you've just scared the living daylights of everybody, and really you shouldn't be doing that. It's a bad idea. So an alternative way of getting your website, your call to action to work better than this, keep it simple, keep it bright. Now, where have your eyes all just gone? That yellow, it gives the strongest response, statistically. Blue writing is usually good, and you can't miss that. I've used exactly the same amount of space for those two, but it's very clear which one will work better. My final point on websites, I often get asked by people running a business, my son is a 20-year-old student, he's an engineer, he knows all about website, he's done it. Yeah, C++, the programmer, is fantastic. I have picked up a number of websites that have had this treatment, and it's not always been successful. If I give you a for instance on this, you've got to go and see a really important new client or prospect, and you decide to ask your 20-year-old son to go and buy your clothes for the event and say that you would like to look really cool. Now you get the general idea. You are going to end up with some clothes which you really don't like and really not fit for purpose because they've never been in a business meeting and they don't know what they're doing. That is one reason why getting a professional at this point right at the outset is very good, and then you do the maintaining. That's the cheapest way of doing it. If you get somebody who's 20 to do your website, particularly if it's a member of the family, it will take 6 months, and when it arrives it won't work. And then you'll have to pay somebody to undo all of that work and do it again for you. Social media, great opportunity. Lots of people are terrified of it. But if somebody puts something out there and it's bad, what do I do? There are mechanisms for dealing with that. But it is very good and very useful, providing you're willing to be patient. It's a long burn, but if you do it well, you can communicate extremely effectively through social media for certain sorts of products and services. What you need to make sure you do, if you're going to do it yourself and not employ the lovely Katie here, who does this professionally, is that you need to make sure that your demographics of your clients match the demographics of the social media you're using. So if you wanted to talk to somebody like me, that would be Facebook. That would be quite good on a private basis. If you wanted to speak to me professionally, then it will be LinkedIn. And again, don't use your 20-year-old daughter at this point because she knows how Facebook works and you don't. The problem with that is that she might do you a great Snapchat story to sell your law firm, and that ain't going to work. You've got to get the things to tie up nicely. It's great for customers, and it's also great for helping raise the ranking of your website, so it's well worth doing. And it's great for DIY. What I would recommend here is it's sometimes a good idea to get a professional in to just help you understand what you're supposed to be doing and get either some tuition or get them to start you off so you get the hang of it and you understand how to get more followers, because that's the tricky bit. So I'm just going to give you a few very quick top tips. Use LinkedIn and use it thoroughly. Something that lots of people are very unaware of, and so they don't put a great deal of effort into their LinkedIn profile, is that 85% of all business people look at a LinkedIn profile before they go to a meeting. So if yours is not looking fantastic, you're already on the back foot at the beginning of the meeting. It's like networking, just online. So like this evening, if you've come along to a networking meeting and you're looking to impress people, you've given some thought to what you look like, you've brought your business cards, you've got your little elevator pitch all to hand. Well, LinkedIn works exactly the same way. And what you would do is if you met somebody that you really liked, say I met you here this evening and we thought, oh, we could do a bit of business. What I don't do now is walk away and then never talk to you again. What I do when I get back to my office is I communicate with you and say, let's have a coffee, let's have a one-to-one chat. Perhaps we can have a discussion as to how we might do business together. With LinkedIn, it's the same. You connect, then you do something. You don't just leave it in midair. That won't work. But otherwise, you get nothing out of it. It's got a fantastic database, brilliant for lead generation. I haven't got time to explain that today, but it's great for getting referrals and introductions. and see it as an extension of your website. It's a great way of impressing on a one-to-one basis. To summarise, your choice of social media, hang out where your customers do. Do blog. It's a great way of creating your social media content. It's fantastic. My last social media platform, which is now a must-have. No two ways about it. Video is the new must-have. After Google, YouTube is the second most used search engine on the planet. Not Bing, not Yahoo, nothing else. It's YouTube. So if you've got a presence with your website and you've got a presence on YouTube, you will catch both. And if your audience is younger, they look at YouTube often before they Google it. So well worth investing in that. So we finally got a new prospect from all of our passive marketing. What are we going to do first? Well, as I said at the beginning, end-to-end marketing. Give them a proper welcome, make them feel at home, make them feel like they're the only customer and that you've got time for them. Fantastic. So you've got your customer. And now we're going to move on to product, new product development or new markets, which is another way of getting customers in. You go off and you do research. You identify a new audience for your product. You've got to think creatively about how you're going to communicate it. So let's take a product which we're all familiar with. Golf clubs. I'm about to offend several golfers in here, I know that for sure. So let's imagine Stelios is in charge of golf clubs. What would he do to access a new marketplace? Well, first of all, obviously, it would be called Easy Golf. First of all, he would do a proper hello, and he would do it in orange, because that's the way I operate. He wouldn't care what you wore on the golf course. There would be none of this traditional rule bounds, got to do it this way, got to do it that way, none of that stuff at all. He'd be looking for extension marketing. Now, he wants to flog you more stuff than just your green fee. He'd be going after a different market. So he knows that kids and women sometimes feel intimidated with golf clubs. So why not positively welcome them? What's interesting about that is if you start off with the kids young, they'll grow up with it, a bit like with McDonald's, which is what they do with their Happy Meals, which is the same principle. And you'd make it fun, not serious. So you don't have to go to the 19th hole in order to be able to enjoy yourself. You can do it all the way around, which is got to be good. Getting towards the end of my presentation, but what I do want to talk about now is proactive marketing. That's where we go out and we get them in ourselves, often called sales and lead generation. And while we're at it, we can also develop our existing customers and try and get back some of those old ones, which we've managed somehow to lose track of. So what you need is some kind of communication strategy. You need a database. Databases, a good database is worth investing in, and it needs to be used well. So your communication strategy is who you're going to talk to, what are you going to say, and when are you going to say it. Rules for your marketing database. Make it central, core part of your software and accessible to everyone in the business. Make sure that it's easy to use and you don't need a rule book this deep in order to get your way around it and find the information you require. Really important, keep it clean. If a client phones up and says, I've moved house to the accounts department, they need to be able to access the marketing database to update that information so that when somebody in sales calls the customer, they don't go, yeah, but I told you last week that I've moved, because that looks bad. And what also happens with that is if it's not kept up to date, people start thinking that the database is rubbish and they start saying that the software is rubbish. It isn't the software, it's the maintenance which is the problem. Really important that the person running the business uses it as much as the people on the ground. Then they understand what's going on and they understand the complexities of their own business. You do need to make sure it's compliant with the law. There's been changes in the data protection law, and you need to make sure that it's appropriately compliant. It's also a wonderful management tool for planning and understanding what works and what doesn't work. It will give you statistics which tells you your return on investment. And it's well worth investing a bit of time in understanding how the reporting works to make sure that you get the most out of it. So, talked about who, what and when from the communications point of view. You can easily waste your time and effort by doing things quite badly wrong. You can't sell a lawnmower to someone who's living in a high-rise flat. But the problem with broadcast marketing is it's very tempting just to send the same message out to everybody, irrespective of whether it's going to be appropriate. And what you do when you do that is annoy the people you've got it wrong for. So it's really important you do get the messaging correct. Right people, right time, right message. The most amount of your effort should go into identifying the right people. The next most important thing is the right time. And the right message actually is the weakest element of that when you're actually working out what will give you the best return on investment. However, we have a problem with right time because we never know when somebody's going to need that new toaster because the last one's broken. So the only way of getting that right if you don't have data for it is just keep on telling them. Keep on being in contact. Keeping on being top of mind. Finally, and what a lot of people think of as being the most important element of marketing, I put right towards the bottom end of marketing, and that is your looks. We all look to look pretty, we all want to be stylish and all the rest of it, but actually at the end of the day, functionality and process in marketing is far more important. Doing the right things consistently is more important than looking beautiful. However, it is still important. Now, I used Stelios earlier as an example. Their branding is basically only two things which make it completely recognisable instantaneously. The word easy and the colour orange. It's not rocket science, it's simple and straightforward. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward. This is definitely an area where it's worth investing in a professional to help you rather than subcontracting it to somebody who's doing a graphics A level. Because they know what they're doing and they know all that stuff about fonts. They know all the stuff about colours, which colours work together and that kind of thing. Use them, get it set up, and then you can run with it. So less is more, keep it simple. Use standard fonts. It's ever so tempting when you've got your Word document open and it gives you 500 different fonts to use. Oh, well, I'll use something really glamorous. But what will happen inevitably at some point is that somebody within the team will send out an email with a Word document attached to it using the fancy font. And when it arrives at the other end, the other person hasn't got that fancy font. They'll open it up and it will look horrible. There are two things you need to do there. One is use a standard font in the first place. They're likely to have Homer at the other end, so it won't go wrong. And secondly, try to avoid the human error in the first place and make sure they always send it as a PDF. Websites work the same. I don't know if anyone's just recently, not that long ago, eBay changed to a fancy font, which wasn't web friendly. And as a result, every apostrophe in the whole place had a funny sort of squiggly A with a circumflex on the top, which is actually not very useful, and it looked terribly unprofessional. Using a standard font on your website will also mean it's robust and will work every time. Use in-house templates, get them set up so that it means that nobody will end up with things falling off pages or looking bad or tatty. Train your staff to use it well, and then have guidelines freely available and enforce them. If somebody's not doing it right, pull them up on it. So, to summarise, plan, plan, plan. Give it time, give it your time. If you don't, it will always go a little bit off rail. But giving a small amount of time up front and then a little bit each week is all you need to do. Always think of the customer first, not yourself. Train your staff, invest in them, make sure that they know what you're trying to achieve. Get on board the right tools, specifically website and database. Use a professional if you need help to get you going. And once you know the basics, then you can DIY it. Remember, right is better than cheap. And finally, always review what you're doing, learn from it, and do it better next time.